Tokyo, a city that never truly sleeps. Neon lights, the hum of traffic, and crowds that never stop moving. But hidden among the countless buildings and glowing signs in Shinjuku, there was one apartment that had fallen eerily silent, room 403. For weeks, no one had seen the man who lived there. The hallway light outside his door flickered weakly, and a faint, unpleasant smell had begun to seep into the air. At first, the neighbors thought it was a clogged drain or old garbage, but the odor grew stronger, heavier, until it became impossible to ignore. An elderly woman who lived next door finally called the building manager, her voice shaking as she said, "That man in 403 hasn't come out in a long time, but at night I still hear him talking to someone." When the police arrived, it was raining, the kind of cold, steady rain that makes the city feel even lonelier. The narrow stairwell glistened with moisture, and the fluorescent lights flickered as the officers climbed to the 4th floor. When they reached the door to room 403, they noticed something strange, a layer of dust around the doorknob, as if no one had touched it in weeks. They knocked once, no answer. They called out his name, still silence. Then, with a heavy thud, they forced the lock open. The door swung inward and a wave of cold, stale air poured out, carrying with it a sickly mixture of rot, mold, and faint perfume. It was the smell of time stopped still. Inside, the apartment was small, a single room with barely enough space for one person, yet everything was strangely clean. The dishes were washed, the bed neatly made, the curtains drawn tight. Nothing seemed disturbed except for one haunting detail, the dining table. 2 plates were set out neatly side by side. One was empty. The other still held food that had long dried and hardened with dust. And sitting at that table was a man in his mid-40s, thin, pale, motionless. His name was Hiroshi Sato. He sat perfectly upright, eyes open but lifeless as if frozen mid-conversation. Across from him sat a woman. She was beautifully dressed, her hair tied back neatly, her lips painted a soft shade of red. For a moment, one of the officers thought she was alive, that she was simply sitting still, staring lovingly at the man across from her. But when the flashlight moved across her face, the truth became clear. She wasn't human. She was a mannequin. The silence in that room was suffocating. On the table between them lay a small handwritten note. The words were simple, almost tender. She said she'd never leave. Now she never will. When one of the officers leaned in to move the mannequin, he noticed something wrong. The hands looked too realistic, not like plastic at all. The skin had faint pores. The fingernails were uneven. And when he gently pressed the skin on her wrist, it gave slightly, like real flesh. They peeled back a small layer of the plastic coating, and what they found made every man in that room step back. Beneath the artificial layer was real human skin. Later testing confirmed the unthinkable. The fingerprints matched a woman named Miyuki Tanaka who had gone missing 6 months earlier. She had lived in the same building, just 2 floors below Sato. Neighbors described Miyuki as cheerful and polite, a 28-year-old convenience store clerk who always greeted everyone with a smile. Sato, on the other hand, was quiet and withdrawn. He worked at a mannequin factory on the outskirts of Tokyo, rarely spoke, and was often seen returning home in the middle of the night carrying small boxes. His co-workers said he was polite but odd, obsessed with mannequins, especially their eyes. He would spend hours painting them, talking to them as if they could hear him. One colleague recalled Sato once saying, "People always leave, but mannequins, they never do." After Miyuki moved into the building, people noticed changes in him. He started wearing clean clothes, buying flowers, and even smiling occasionally. He waited near the mailboxes at the same time she came home from work, pretending to check his own mail. To her, he was probably just a quiet neighbor. But to him, she had become everything. When police searched his apartment, they found dozens of photos of Miyuki, some printed from her social media, others taken secretly from his window. In one notebook, her name was written over and over again, surrounded by sentences like, "She smiled at me today," "She looked sad when she saw me," and finally, "She said goodbye, but I don't believe her." Investigators believe the crime happened on a rainy evening in April. Miyuki had just come home from work when Sato knocked on her door pretending to deliver a package. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. Blood traces found under his floorboards matched hers. Police also found sewing needles, mannequin limbs, and skin grafting tools. It seemed Sato had tried to recreate Miyuki, combining mannequin parts with pieces of her real body, preserving her in the only way his mind could accept. The mannequin sitting across from him wasn't an imitation. It was half plastic and half Miyuki. When officers questioned him, Sato didn't resist. He simply looked at them with empty eyes and said softly, "Please don't touch her. She's sleeping." During interrogation, he never denied anything. He described Miyuki's favorite food, her perfume, even how she laughed. When asked why he did it, he smiled faintly and whispered, "She told me she'd never leave. Now she keeps her promise." He was sentenced to life imprisonment, and inside his cell, guards said he remained calm, polite and eerily quiet. Every day, he carved small mannequin hands out of soap bars. Every night, just before lights out, they heard him whisper, "Good night, Miyuki." Apartment 403 was sealed after the case. Months later, when the building's owner tried to rent it out again, new tenants would always complain of the same thing. The air inside felt too cold, even in summer. And sometimes, late at night, when the rain was falling and the city outside had gone silent, they would hear a man's voice from somewhere deep inside the walls, soft, loving and lonely. "Dinner's ready, my love," and it would say. And that's how the story of the silent apartment became one of Tokyo's darkest legends, like a haunting reminder of how loneliness can twist into something unrecognizable and how love, when poisoned by obsession, can become the most terrifying crime of all.